What's up, everyone? It's Anil here. Welcome to my new YouTube channel. On this channel, I'm going to focus on creating content around the collective bargaining agreement. So whether that's, signings, extensions, trades, anything that's going on related to the NBA, the business side of the NBA, that's what we're going to be focusing on this channel. So if there's any specific topics that you want me to cover, either something that's happening now, something that you see that may come up in the future, like which teams may have salary cap space next offseason, which stars may come available, in a year, in 2 years, what you should be looking out for, drop a comment below and I'll definitely try to incorporate that into some of the future videos. So for the first video, the focus of this is going to be on rookie scale extensions. Let's jump right into it. All right, so who's eligible to sign a rookie scale extension right now? Basically, any player that was drafted in the first round of the 2020 draft. That was the draft highlighted by Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, LaMelo Ball. All players that were drafted in the first round of that draft and remained on the rookie scale contract. So you have to remove players like Jalen Smith. He was the number 10 pick. His team option in year 3 was not picked up by Phoenix, so he is not eligible to sign a rookie scale extension. Anyone else, they will be eligible to sign a rookie scale extension up to October 23rd, the day before the season starts. Now, who's already signed a rookie scale extension? So far, we've seen 7 extensions signed. Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Tyrese Halliburton. Those 3 players all signed max extensions, which is 5 years, $207 million. They all start at 25% of the cap. If they make All-NBA this season, those contracts will jump up to 30% and then increase from there. So it'll be 5 years, $248 million. All of them also have a 15% trade kicker in those contracts. Then we saw Desmond Bane. He signed 5 years, $197 million, and that starts at just below 24% of the cap. He also has just under $9 million of unlikely bonuses in his contract. Then we saw Isaiah Stewart. He signed an interesting contract. It was 4 years, $60 million, and he signed it pretty early. He signed it in July. Year 4 is a team option. I actually think that this contract is slightly below his market value. But so far in his career, Isaiah Stewart's made $15 million. So to get a new contract that starts at $15 million, it actually remains at $15 million per year for each season. So to sign a $60 million contract, that's still life-changing money. So good signing for Isaiah Stewart. Then we saw Devin Vassell. He signed a significant contract, one that I think is going to have some pretty significant implications on the rest of the market. He signed 5 years, $135 million with an additional $11 million that he can earn in unlikely bonuses. His starts at just over 20% of the cap. We'll get into his contract in more detail in a minute. And then last but not least, we saw Peyton Pritchard. He signed a 4-year, $30 million contract. It starts just below 5% of the cap. I think this is a pretty good signing for Boston. Boston is a second apron team next season, so they will have to rely on keeping their own players or using the minimum exception. That's the only exception that they'll have available in order to acquire new talent. So that's a pretty solid signing for Boston. Now, one thing that you'll notice that I talk about regularly is going to be percent of the salary cap when I look at these contracts, because I think that's the best way with the salary cap jumping so significantly from year to year. I think that's the best way to compare contracts that were signed in previous seasons with contracts that are going to be signed now and in the future. All right, so now let's go into specific players. What do we think of Devin Vassell's contract extension? First, let's take a step back. Devin Vassell was drafted number 11 overall by San Antonio in 2020. And I think his contract is pretty important in terms of setting the market for other extensions that we may see this offseason. So in year 1, Devin Vassell averaged 5.5 points a game. In year 2, he averaged 12.5 points a game. And in year 3, last year, he averaged 18.5 points a game on about 39% shooting from 3. He also averaged 4 rebounds a game and about 3.5 assists per game. So he made a pretty significant leap in development in year 3. In Devin Vassell's first 3 seasons, he played about 70% of the games, and he missed 44 games last season with a knee injury, but he did return at the end of the season to prove that he's healthy again, and I think that was important to restore his value completely. He also just turned 23 in August. In the final year of his extension, if he signed a 5-year extension, in the final season, he'll be in year 9, and he will be 28 years old and likely entering his prime or already in his prime. So there were no other recent signings this offseason from San Antonio that I think would help gauge how they would benchmark Vassell's value. Now, obviously, they signed Keldon Johnson to an extension a year ago, but I think that was a little lower than the extension that we would have seen from Keldon Johnson, so I don't think that's a good comparable. Keldon Johnson's contract extension was for under 15% of the salary cap, so I thought Vassell would come in a bit higher than that. I think a reasonable comparison for him was Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson just signed a contract in July. He didn't receive a rookie scale extension last year, but he did sign a contract in July with Brooklyn. That contract started at about 19% of the cap in year 1, and that was where I thought we could see Devin Vassell's contract starting, but I thought that Devin Vassell's would be going upwards instead of the structure that he ended up getting. So first, let's look at Cam Johnson's contract structure. So he signed a 4-year contract, starts at about $25.5 million and just under 19% of the cap. It goes down in year 2, and then it goes down again in year 3, going down to about $21.5 million and 14.5% of the cap. And then in year 4, it jumped up a little bit to $23.5 million and 15% of the cap. So overall, Cam Johnson's contract was $94.5 million guaranteed. There's an additional $13.5 million in unlikely bonuses. The average percent of the salary cap for his contract is about 16%. So I thought that was a decent comparable for Devin Vassell, but I thought Vassell would get a little bit more. So now let's look at Devin Vassell's structure. It was structured actually quite similarly, just over 5 years instead of 4. So year 1, $29.3 million, started at just over 20% of the cap, which is around where I expected it to start. But in year 2, it went down to $27 million. Year 3, it stayed at $27 million. Year 4, it went down again to $24.7 million. So now you're looking at around 14.9% of the cap. And then in year 5, it did go back up a little bit to $27 million. And the average percent of the salary cap for Devin Vassell's contract is 17.2%. I was expecting this number to be a little bit higher. Overall, he got $135 million guaranteed, which is awesome. That's a ton of money. And he also has the ability to earn an additional $11 million in unlikely bonuses. So one of the reasons that we see that contract goes back up in year 5 is because of the extension that San Antonio may try to sign him to down the road. So Devin Vassell, he's essentially signing a 6-year contract when you include the upcoming season. And when you sign a 6-year contract, you're eligible to sign an extension starting on the 3rd year anniversary of when you signed that contract. So he'll be extension eligible in 2026. And the year 1 starting value of that next extension will be 140% of the salary of his final season. So that's 140% of the salary in his final season, which is $27 million. So year 1 salary in his new contract would be $37.8 million. So when he's entering his 10th season, the starting salary will be about $37.8 million if he were to sign that extension and he was to get the max amount of money he could get. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but if the cap rises at 5% per year, year 1, he would be getting about 21% of the cap. If the salary cap rises by 10% each year, year 1 of his next extension would only be around 16% of the cap. At that time, based on his years of service, he'd be eligible to sign for 30% of the cap. And that contract would be around $55 million. And if he makes All-NBA, then those numbers can go even higher. So I think it's pretty interesting, the contract that he signed. I think very quickly it will become a team-friendly contract. The other important note that I noticed here is Devin Vassell. He's represented by CAA, who also represents Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole signed a rookie skill extension just a year ago. for 4 years, $123 million. So I thought Jordan Poole might be another good comparable, along with Tyler Herro. He signed a rookie scale extension last year, and Cam Johnson. So let's put all those contracts side by side and let's see how they compare. Poole starts at just over 20%. Herro starts just below 20%. Vassell starts just above 20%. Cam Johnson starts just below 19%. So similar starting points, but Poole goes upwards, Herro goes upwards, Vassell starts going downwards until his final season. Cam Johnson goes downwards except for this final season. So what you'll see here is that the average percent of the salary cap for Jordan Poole is 21% over the lifetime of his contract. Tyler Herro's about 20.5%. Vassell's is 17.2%. So based on how you value Vassell compared to Poole and Herro, Vassell's going to be earning about 17.2% of the salary cap over the lifetime of his 5 years. Obviously, he got an extra season, whereas Jordan Poole and Tyler Herro are going to be getting significantly more than that over the lifetime of their contract. When you look at this graphic, you put the contracts next to each other in this graph. The yellow line represents Jordan Poole. The gray line represents Tyler Herro. The orange line represents Cam Johnson. And the blue line represents Devin Vassell. You can see Jordan Poole and Tyler Herro have a similar trajectory, but there's a pretty significant gap once you start getting to year 4 when you compare their contracts to the contracts of Cam Johnson and Devin Vassell. So we'll see how this ends up paying off. Obviously, he still signed a pretty significant contract for 5 years, $135 million. I was expecting that contract to come in closer to 5 years, $150 million. And I thought that if he was to give him a bit of a discount, like the $135 million contract he signed, I was expecting year 5 to be a player option. It obviously didn't have that. So it'll be interesting to see, one, if this ends up being a team-friendly contract pretty quickly. And then 2, if he ends up signing an extension off of it, or he ends up seeing that, you know what, my value is worth a lot more than this, and ends up testing free agency after year 9. Obviously, that comes much further down the road, so only time will tell. But I also think that this will be interesting to see how 5-year contracts end up impacting these extensions. So initially, you know, it's good because a player gets to guarantee a lot more money, but if teams are able to sign these players to reasonable salary amounts, then they're going to be locking up players heading into their prime at a pretty favorable dollar amount. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it, but time will tell.